before I introduce Eduardo, those words, space culture, have two meanings. I mean, two different meanings in a way. One is, what is our vision of space from here, from Earth? What is our imaginaries of space? And how the way we are going into space, the way what we're doing into space is embedded into the Earthian culture. But it has also a second meaning, which is, what kind of culture are we going to produce in space? Assuming we go, but we are already gone, right? So we're already in outer space. So this is, I think today, and especially with this first session, we are trying to target what a space culture could be. So now I'm happy to welcome Eduardo Kac. So Eduardo is an artist whose creation and medium span poetry, holography, digital art, robotics, communication and net art to represents boy art and space art. So he wrote many books and articles, and his most recent works, Telescope Intérieur and Adsum, are both on the ISS and probably further. So now I give him the floor, and I'm going to ask Karine to switch off the stage light. Thank you.
Thank you, Annick. Thank you, Marcus, for the invitation. It's wonderful to be here. So this presentation is an overview of my practice in space art starting in 1986. Before 86, I started in 1983 what I called holographic poetry, working with holography, which was partially motivated by my theorization that social writing systems are gravitropic. They follow our perception of gravity on Earth. So here we have Latin, for example, Hebrew, and Chinese. I am unaware of any social writing system that functions from bottom up. If anybody knows one, I would love to do that, and I'll change my theory accordingly. But as far as we know, all social writing systems are, as I call them, gravitropic. So as a young poet, a young artist, I asked myself, can I develop a system that is not gravitropic for poetry? And it seemed to me that I would have to actually change the medium that I worked with in order to achieve that. And in a sense, holography was the technical solution to the aesthetic problem that I had created. The hologram that you see on the right physically has 360 degrees, but the poem has 720 degrees. So not only it defies gravity because it floats in the air, but it also defies logic because there is no coincidence between the physical substrate and the content of the poem. I just give, this is on the left is a picture of an exhibition. That particular piece on view there is in a public collection in the UK now. And in the bottom, you see different points of view of the same work. So I started to explore that notion also of discontinuities. People think that holography is just about recording three dimensions, but I'm particularly interested in time. That's me when I still had hair in the lab, and then another view of that same piece. Just to give you a very brief idea, this is video from one of my holo poems, therefore non-gravitropic work, from 1991. We're watching video, but it's important that I reiterate the fact that these works are truly holographic. This is video documentation, right? So imagine somebody just with a camera walking around and recording, but I could call this phenomenological video because it's not like professional video. It's video capturing the act of seeing. Just to give you an idea, and you also have to imagine that these letters, these words are floating in the air. In this context, I wouldn't say floating in space because that would be taken literally, which is not the case here, but ideally would be the case with this piece that I conceived in 1986. to be sent to deep space. This is a holopoem that I have not sent yet, that is conceived as a latent star, by which I mean that the hologram does not contain pictures. The hologram encodes information of light traveling in space and time. Of course, you can encode whatever you want, and when you look at it, you can see that, but the holograms by definition are not picture-making devices. You can use lasers that have frequency of sound, etc. So by definition, a hologram is not something that encodes visual images. Here, the idea is that lasers, by the way, do exist in nature. These are just a few examples. So the idea would be that as you send this holopoem to deep space, potentially, as you would in the future encounter naturally occurring lasers, it would actually activate the hologram, which would then emit light in deep space, therefore becoming this suspended animation star, this latent star that is located in deep space and that is then emitting light, which contains the content of the poem, which unfortunately, given the time that we have, I can't digress on. So just moving forward to give you a very brief overview, in '89, I created this early piece of telecommunication art using a slow scan television system, which today is not fundamentally so different from FaceTime and Google Meet and Zoom. But back in the day, these things didn't exist. So any artist that wanted to work with telecommunications had to set up his or her own network, which was ephemeral in nature, and this is what I did. But in this work, I worked with satellite images and microscopic images, and the overlap between the two occurred at the receiving end. So every time I sent these images, they overlapped, and I alternated microscopic and macroscopic, macroscopic, and they fused at the receiver's end. And this created that feeling of awe before the very small and before the very large, which is something that has continuously fascinated me. Starting in '96, I created this piece which flew on the Cassini spacecraft in '97 to Saturn. This piece I call Monogram. Perhaps you may recognize a circling orbit, perhaps a stylized image of a rising rocket, and maybe a partial moon, but possibly you may also recognize my last name. So it's a picture, it's a drawing, but it's also my signature that I have been doing for a long time. On the right, this is the confirmation from the Planetary Society that flew the DVD, and on the right you see the technician attaching the DVD to the Cassini spacecraft, and on the left the photograph of the Titan Center rocket carrying, among other things, the Cassini, and on the right we have computer graphics that NASA produced because there is no secondary craft. The Chinese Space Agency did that recently when they sent a spacecraft to Mars. They had a separate craft just to photograph the main craft. That was not the case, so NASA had to do computer graphics on the right. But there are nice images of Cassini orbiting Saturn, and they had Cassini dive into Saturn so that it would burn and not pollute the planet. So as a result, the artwork burned in Saturn as well. Among other things I have been creating, I'm very interested in writing systems, as I'm sure you gathered from the presentation so far. And this includes an interest for pre-alphabetic writing systems. So I have been creating since 2009 my own visual writing system, which I don't have time to digress extensively, but it will suffice to say that I have transmitted with my system 5 messages to the Lepus constellation, which of course relates to rabbits and hares. And this is the transmission data here on the left. This is another view of the disks because I have etched those messages on the steel disks that you saw, but this is separate from the disks so you can see more clearly here. Another thing that is interesting about the disks is that they have very tight concentric lines, grooves, and that makes a flat surface function like a curved spherical mirror, which means that it concentrates light, focuses light in actual space here, our space here, which means that you stand before the disk and there is a beam of light coming towards you, which is actually there. It's not an illusion. That light is focused there. It gets reflected in the disk, which is not formed behind the disk, but that gives you the impression of a continuous line extending into infinity and disappearing into infinity when you look at the actual artwork. I have continued this logoglyph system into other pieces like the satellite works. And I have been creating these glyphs that I, let's say, rubber stamp on the surface of the planet. In this case, is on the roof of an art center in Rio de Janeiro was the first one. And since 2009, I have been creating these works to be seen by satellite. If I can show you these works on your own phone when we take a break, so just come see me or after the end of the day. I'll be happy to show you how to access these works via Google on your own phones. Here's on the roof of the Museum of Contemporary Art in Mallorca. This work is part of the collection, so it can be on the roof at any time. This one was in London, and this one in Strasbourg. I don't have the number 5 in the series on my website yet, but I'm happy to share with you because I just opened it last week in Geneva. It's going to stay on view on the ground. This is 16 by 6 meters. It will stay on the ground at least until the end of January next year. And the city of Geneva organizes exhibitions of contemporary art in a cemetery called Cimetière de Plainpalais, also known as Cimetière des Rois, which is a public park. People go there in the morning, Sunday, to spend time with family, read the paper, etc. And it's a very particular cemetery because people like Jorge Luis Borges are buried there. So it's interesting. It's a very particular location. This is a drone photo. I don't have the satellite image yet for this piece because it's just open. This is shot at 140 meters off the ground, but gives you a good sense of what will happen when I do get the satellite image. For every work that I do that is made to be seen by satellites, I also capture the data from Google Earth, and I produce videos like this. And this gives you an idea of what that experience is like, because you can actually do this yourself in Google Earth app. You can do the zoom yourself. Each pixel is 40 by 40 centimeters to match the resolution of the satellite. So the work is created at the 1-to-1 scale between the Earth and the satellite. Not that you need an excuse to go to Mallorca, I know, but no, there's one more reason. So that's that. If you happen to go to the Venice Biennial, I'm currently showing all 4 videos. The first time that I get to show all 4 videos together at the Venice Biennial. And this is the building where I am exhibiting the works, and that's a view of on the right is a view of the exhibition, Palazzo Ca' Bernardo in São Paulo. So if you go to Giardini, just be nice if you could take the time to cross to São Paulo and see the work. Now, getting close to the present time and also closer to the end of my presentation, I was an artist in residence at the CNES, the French Space Agency, for 10 years, with the goal of creating an artwork in the ISS, an artwork conceived specifically for zero gravity. In outer space, the concept of up and down, left and right, front or back is not functional. And what happens when we meet the challenge of creating an artwork that doesn't follow any of the parameters that we spent our entire lives following, up and down, left, right, front or back? So I had the opportunity to work with Thomas Pesquet on this project. Not when I started, because France didn't have an astronaut at that time. So I was already 3 years into my residency when Thomas was selected. He was an Air France pilot, so took him 7 years to train. My 3 plus his 7, total 10 years for the work to be made. Here we see Thomas and I in the mock-up Columbus module at the Cologne Astronaut Training Center, where he trained me in the specifics of the Columbus module, and I trained him by communicating and practicing with him, as you see us holding the work there, communicating to him my protocol, which he executed beautifully aboard the ISS. This video has 12 minutes. We don't have 12 minutes, so I'm just going to jump somewhere into minute number 8 here to give you an idea of this work. Inner telescope, it is called. Télescope antérieur en français. Inner telescope in English. We'll just play 2 minutes, 3 minutes of it. It goes without saying that the blue bubble in the back is our home planet. So this gives you an idea of inner telescope. It was written up. This is a full page in the New York Times. This is a projection at the Louvre of the documentary that the CNES produced. There are artist books. There's a book that the CNES published about this work. Here's the DVD, a bigger view of the Louvre projection. There are photographs, drawings, embroideries. There's a whole series of works in the Inner Telescope series that we don't have time to digress and analyze, but all of this is documented on my website. And this is then the final work that I wish to share, which is the current work I'm developing called Adsum, which in Latin, it means here I am. And this work is created for the moon. I actually have it here, so you can, if you'd like to see it, I'd be happy to share with you during the break or later. So since I'm very close to the end, I will just play this video, which takes exactly the amount of time that I have left. Adsum is a cubic glass sculpture inside of which 4 symbols are laser engraved. The 4 symbols are the hourglass, representing time at a human scale, infinity, representing time at the cosmic scale, a large circle, representing the Earth, a small circle, representing the Moon. The shift in scale from the small circle to the large circle is a zoom out effect, going from human time to cosmic time. The shift from the large circle to the small circle is a zoom in, going from the cosmos to humanity. At the end of this road is the viewing location, so that I'm going to have a great view about 4 kilometers away from the launch platform, from the launch pad. This is it. Here I am, just about to park, and then watch the rocket lift off. Adsum is now aboard the International Space Station. This is a test flight. Adsum's ultimate destination is the moon. And that was exactly 20 minutes. There you go. Thank you.